guys, welcome to ZooView. This is your first time joining us. It's a nice way for you guys to see some of the animals we have here at the zoo when we are closed, learn some pretty cool facts and information about them, and also you guys can ask some questions at the end. Right now, we are closed for the season. Pay attention to our Facebook as well as our website to find out when we will open again. And I'll be talking about our Mexican red-kneed tarantula, Morty, today. If you're returning, welcome back. You guys can put your questions in throughout the talk if you want. At the end, though, we will do our best to get to most of them. And if we do not get to your question, though, we will do our very best in the next day or two to answer them in the comments, all right? So I'll be getting out our Mexican red-kneed tarantula, Morty. Now, Morty lives here in the reptile building. A lot of you guys have probably passed him without even noticing that he is here. And he actually lives here at the front desk, in our front desk, in our enclosure. So I'm going to get out our little friend. Morty. So here is Morty. He's our Mexican red-kneed tarantula. Now they come from Mexico, hence the name, and the southwestern part, you can even find them in the United States, near the bottom of Texas and Arizona. Now there are over 850 actual species of tarantulas ranging from the rainforest to deserts to tropical regions, and they live different lifestyles. Some of them are arboreal. They like to live and climb up in trees. Other ones, like Morty here, are terrestrial, where it means they like to stay on the ground. They range in sizes too as well. They range from things smaller than Morty here to much, much bigger, to the Goliath bird-eating tarantula, which can actually reach the size of a dinner plate. Morty here is a relatively small type of tarantula. He'll only get about 5 to 6 inches long, kind of around. So he's still pretty young. He's only about 4 years old. He still has a lot of growing left to do. Now, tarantulas and spiders are a really cool creature because they do not have a backbone. They actually have an exoskeleton. So an exoskeleton is much different than what you think. It's not just bone. Their exoskeleton is actually comprised of a couple different things. One of them is a chitin polysaccharide. That's a big fancy word for like a sugar compound. And sclerotin, which is a protein compound. So those two things put together make up an exoskeleton. So they don't have a backbone like you and I do, or any of the other animals that we have here at the park. Now, some more about the anatomy of a tarantula. They have 4 pairs of legs around here, segmented in different pieces, as well as 2 feelers, which are these 2 right up in front. They're a little shorter because they are missing 1 segment, and they don't have the same number of toes at the end. All of our legs here have 2 toes, which are very small and hooked. It feels very much like Velcro. They kind of pick up and peel off, which give them the ability to stay vertical. And I can move my hand all around, and he holds on. So those feelers don't have them, but those feelers help find those food. Another big difference between animals and tarantulas is their insides are flipped. They have a top part, which is this upper part right there, kind of that orange ring around it, called a prosoma. On our bodies, our upper part carries our lungs and heart. Their upper part around their face is actually their stomach. Their heart and lungs are actually in this bigger part back here, what people might know as the abdomen, or the osteoprostoma, which is the back end. This is where their heart and lungs are. Their stomach is actually up here by their mouth. And they actually have 2 stomachs. They have their protruding stomach and then their true stomach. Their protruding stomach actually has a lot of liquids in there to help break down their food source, to make it like a milkshake that they will slurry up, where their true stomach will actually absorb all of that nutrients. And then their heart and lungs, like I said, are back here. And those are also really unique as well. Their heart is tubular shaped and elongated. And it pumps different blood than you and I. Their blood is actually a bluish tinge. That's because it has high copper values in it. A big animal that a lot of people know for having blue blood is going to be horseshoe crabs. So they have the same type of blood that horseshoe crabs have. And their lungs are much different than our lungs as well. They actually have what is almost an external lung, and they're called book lungs. They kind of look like your pocket. They're kind of flaps almost like gills. And there's 4 of them on each side underneath their abdomen. Underneath there, they have their book lungs. So they're a really, really unique animal and much different than any other species that we've talked about. And then what covers their body is much different as well. It may look like hair to you guys, but it's not hair. It's called bristle or setae. It's not really hair follicles. And each one of those fuzzy pieces on this tarantula here, on Morty, acts differently. He has very long ones on the ends of his legs. Those are almost feelers. They'll pick up any wind or vibrations that might set him off. He has other ones for defense. On his abdomen here, a big self-defense for these guys is they'll kick off their hair, and we'll get into that in a little bit. They'll kick off their hair on their abdomen. Then they have hair, or excuse me, not hair, they have bristles that just cover their body to help keep in warmth because they're an exothermic animal. They don't produce their own body heat. So they have hairs there to keep warmth in. And then they also have hairs to pick up sound vibrations, much different than feel vibrations like wind or other kind of body pressures on top of them. So each bristle on their body is very unique. Now in the wild, these guys will eat anything from small insects to any sort of small invertebrate, another spider, or a lizard, or anything like that. Very small things. They're mainly an insectivore, though, these tarantulas. Here at the zoo, we do give them a variety of things like crickets, superworms, waxworms, things like that. And they will use those fangs. And those fangs do have venom in them. All tarantulas are venomous. Now, their venom is much like a bee sting. I'm going to pause our talk about Morty for a quick second and just quickly talk about the hype that's going around the news right now with those murder hornets. They are nothing really new. We kind of already know about them. And they're called murder hornets because they eat other bees. Now, they're nowhere near here in Pennsylvania. They're only in British Columbia, which is up by Canada, as well as Washington. And if you see something outside during the summertime right now that is a very large, what looks like those murder hornets, it's called a cicada hawk or a cicada killer. Those guys are very harmless to you, and they will only eat those very loud bugs called cicadas. So you guys have nothing to worry about those murder hornets that the news is going about. Now back to Morty here. He does have 2 fangs and venom in him. And most tarantula venom is very much like a normal bee sting, where it may cause some swelling, some localized issues, might burn for an hour or 2, but it will go away. Their venom is much more for smaller animals to immobilize. Now, if you're allergic to bee stings, I wouldn't go suggest handling a tarantula, because then that venom would be, you would be allergic to that as well. But these guys only use their venom to immobilize prey, like I said. They're very, very sensitive, those fangs, and they do not want to use them just out of defense. They really just want to inject the venom into that prey, immobilize it, and let that special stomach kind of dissolve it. They have other defenses to use against predators. So they are kind of camouflaged. And then I mentioned about those special bristle hair-like structures on their back. What they will do is if a predator was coming to attack Morty here, he would kick off all those bristles on the back of his abdomen, And those bristles on a microscopic level kind of look like pine needles. They're very hooked and going off in all different directions. If that gets into your eyes, into your mouth, it will cause a lot of irritation. It would burn. For an animal like a bird or a snake, that would be immobilizing, and the tarantula would be able to get away, and that animal will be left with all those bristles in their face. Morty doesn't do that here. As you see, he's really comfortable with being held. But if he did do that, and it would get on somebody here, it would just be a bit itchy. Now, being a spider and having this exoskeleton here, they don't really grow like you and I do. We don't leave our bodies. But for tarantulas, they actually grow right out of their body. They go into a molt stage. So I'm going to get out what a molt looks like. They will shed their entire exoskeleton out. So this is one of Morty's molts. As you see, it's an exact replica. What happens, you might be able to get a good look at those fangs. Can you see those fangs in there? So, what happens is when they're ready to molt or grow, they will start to lose some of their hair on their abdomen. They will stop eating, and then an exact replica of that exoskeleton is underneath the old one. And then they will flip over and break out of that exoskeleton, and that new one will be underneath. Now, as soon as that molt happens, they're very vulnerable. They're soft, they are very weak, so they like to hide a lot. And then the exoskeleton will harden up to what you kind of see here, and then they'll go about their way. Now, just like humans, we grow a lot when we're young, and then we slow up. Same thing with spiders. They will molt more when they're young, and as they grow and grow and grow, those molts will tend to slow up to where it may be only 3 times a year, 2 times a year, maybe even only 1 time a year they'll go through this molt stage of when they grow. And the cool thing about molting is say if a spider lost a limb, got stuck in something, got bitten off, if they broke a fang by accident eating a prey animal, those appendages and those fangs will actually have the ability to grow back, which is really, really cool and unique. So it's really important that these guys do go through a healthy molt in case there is any issues with their appendages. Now, Mexican red-kneed tarantulas, they are not high on the endangered species list. They are doing very well. But once again, a lot of their issues revolve around habitat loss, as well as poor agriculture where they come from. So a lot of times, a lot of their plants that they eat, unfortunately, are disappearing due to farming. And you don't always have to like spiders, but spiders are a really important part in our ecosystem. A lot of things eat spiders. Other mammals, birds, other vertebrates like snakes, sometimes will eat, and lizards will eat spiders. So they're a food source for a lot of animals, as well as they take care of a lot of other animals. They eat a lot of those other gross insects that people don't like any of those grubs or beetles or things like that. So they're a really important role in our ecosystem. Now, you don't always have to like spiders and tarantulas, but just have a healthy respect for them. I know they're not high on everybody's list because they're not cute, they're not fuzzy, they don't have big eyes and a lovable nose, but they are really, really important to keep around to make sure our ecosystem stays healthy and that other animals have things to eat. So that's all I have for our tarantula Morty here. I'm gonna open up to you guys if you guys have any questions on Morty or tarantulas in general.
Peter, Paxton wants to know how long he will live.
Good question. Males tend to live a little less than females, but anywhere from 7 to about 12 years.
Katie wants to know how big do they usually get?
They will get about 6 inches kind of lengthwise or widthwise, so kind of around.
Gary wants to know what it feels like when it climbs on you.
Yes, it feels very much like Velcro. If you had like Velcro peel off of you, they have very small little toes. Sorry there, big guy. Little toes that are kind of don't dig in, but you feel the pressure of those little hooks, and it's almost like Velcro peeling off.
Sarah wants to know how many babies they can have.
So depending on the spider species, they can have quite a bit. They can have a few to almost a few dozen.
Do they make spider webs? Emily's asking.
Ooh, I didn't touch on webs. So these spiders don't really make a true web. Most tarantulas don't make a true web like what you might see out in the forest. That very big, elaborate spider hanging down kind of deal. Their bodies are too heavy. They do produce silk though. So Mexican red-knee tarantulas like Morty, they do produce silk, which is protein-based, right out in the back part of their abdomen here called the fusels. Now, he will make a bedding or a bowl almost sometimes, where during a molt, he will lay in, kind of like how you make your own bed. While other tarantulas will actually make a shield or a trap door for things to fall in or come out of. But they don't make that nice big elaborate web you might see in the forest. Tarantulas are much too heavy for that.
Julia's asking if they lay eggs.
Some lay eggs, some give live birth.
Linda wants to know, will they attack things that are going towards them?
So they're very fragile, and they don't want to use those fangs because those are brittle as well. They want to run away first. They want to kick off all those bristles, get them in the face and eyes, and then at last resort, then they'll rear up with those fangs. But they don't want to do that at first.
Has it ever bitten anyone here at Lake Tobias?
It has not bitten anybody here. He very rarely will ever kick off any of those bristles. He's very comfortable, as you see here, kind of crawling around. We do have a rule here that we don't have anyone touch him or pet him just because he's so fragile, and only a few keepers in the reptile building will actually handle him. Just because of how delicate he is, he has to be somewhere that's not 3 feet or higher, because if he does fall 3 feet or higher, it can actually kill him. So as you see, I always kind of keep my hands down close here to the table.
One last question for you. Emily wants to know, are they nocturnal?
Depends on the species. Mexican red knees are a little bit more nocturnal. They do like to come out at night. Other ones are more crepuscular, so dawn and dusk is when they tend to hunt. So that is all the time we have here for you guys. Thank you guys for coming out. I know tarantulas are not everyone's favorites, but thank you guys for listening in. So I'm just going to put him back into his home right here. And always remember, guys, connect, change, and protect. Now, like I said, tarantulas might not be your favorite, spiders might not be your favorite, but they do play a really important role in your ecosystem, and you can make a difference with the animals around you. So thank you guys for coming out and listening to Morty. Our next Zoo Talk will be this Friday, and we have a Mother's Day special. So thank you for all your moms out there. My mom's probably watching. Hi, Mom. So it will be at 1 o'clock. So we have a Mother's Day special at 1 o'clock, and spread the word because you're really going to want to tune into this one, because I promise you it's much cuter than Morty is here. And pay attention to our Facebook and our website for any updates on when we will be open. So thank you guys for coming out, and see you Friday. Bye.